Welcome to the Love in Action Podcast, the show that explores all the ways you can evolve into the best version of yourself as a leader. I'm your host, executive coach, speaker, and author, Marcel Schwantes. I believe that when we show up with our full humanity to work and lead from a place of love and care and inclusion, it will make a radical difference in your leadership, your business, and your bottom line. This is a show about love as a leadership and business strategy. Let's do this. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Glad you are here. You know, one of the things about having a global audience is that I get a lot of pitches, okay? And so people want to come to the show. I get that. But about 90% of those pitches just don't fit the theme of our show. And so we have to protect our mission to ensure that the guests align with the Love in Action message. So when the pitch for today's guest came across my desk, I couldn't get her in here fast enough. Now, many of our guests, as you know, are authors. So, you know, they have written compelling books, they've done research, and they have stories to share. And so we bring him on the show. Today's guest is different. She's an executive. And we love having presidents of companies and CEOs of organizations and founders to share their journey of leading their companies to greatness. So I'm going to be speaking in a couple of minutes to Nathalie Gerschtein. She is the president of L'Oreal's Consumer Products Division in North America. That, by the way, is the largest division in the top market of the world's #1 beauty company. Nathalie Gerschtein doesn't apologize for ambition, folks, okay? She doesn't believe in playing it safe. I guess she and I have something in common because I believe the same. Nathalie is a French native and a global citizen and a self-described learn-it-all rather than know-it-all leader. And she is also the first woman to lead L'Oreal's Consumer Products Division in North America. So today, she joins us to discuss moving beyond business as usual from the comfort zone into the growth zone. We're going to find out what that means. And then by ensuring that things like trust and empathy and bold risks are imperatives for success in leadership and in the business. Nathalie Gerschtein now joins us. Welcome to the Love in Action Podcast.
Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Marcel, for having me.
It's a pleasure. So for those not familiar with your story, okay, your career at L'Oreal spans 21 years. So share a little bit about your story.
Yes. So, look, I am Nathalie Gerschtein. Professionally, I am the president of the Consumer Product Division, which is the mass market division of L'Oreal for North America. I'm also sitting on the board of a biotech American company, and I'm also trying to really develop the French community and the French business overseas, outside of France. So I've been dedicating my career to also do that. So previous to the US, I was working in Asia, and previously I was working in Europe. And I have to say that, you know, in all of these roles, I feel really my childhood love for extreme curiosity, discovering new places, new cultures, new topics. And it really makes me really happy.
That's awesome. So here's the thing. Let's go back to when you took over in your current position in U.S., am I right that COVID hit right about the same time, right? The pandemic just...
Yeah, about a year after.
A year after. So what was that like coming into a new role and then you have this global pandemic happen? Walk us through what was that experience like?
Look, it was an interesting experience because when I arrived in the US, like when you arrive in any new job, and especially when it's in a new country, you have to decode everything, try to understand, what the business is, what the culture is, what the team, who the team are. And so it takes some time to really observe and understand. And in that case, once I thought I had understood, and we had started to put in place some strategies, then COVID hit. And it's true that it's definitely an opportunity for you to say, well, maybe I didn't get everything. And certainly I did not anticipate that we would have to face a global pandemic. So it's a lot on the team. It's a lot on the business. It's a lot on yourself as a leader, because you've started to really learn how to connect with your team, but then suddenly everybody's at home. So you have to find new ways to engage. So it's beyond the business itself that definitely is in a difficult situation with categories that are working better than others and not exactly the way you planned it. It's also like, how do you really keep that connection going with your team and that engagement going with your team? So it was a huge learning, but it was also a way for us to probably get together in an even more tighter way, and also understand that sometimes speed beats perfection, and we're not going to get everything right, but we have to really be tight together as a team.
The leaders that really rose to the top were the ones that actually adapted quickly to that sudden change. And okay, how do we got to do this from home, and those relationships that I used to have where we would go walk down the hall and pull people together into a meeting room and collaborate and have synergy, all gone. So I have to reinvent the wheel in a virtual setting. And to me, that speaks to, if you're a good leader, you were able to do that, or to make that transition.
And during that time, we agreed with the team that we will have like 3 guiding principles. The first one was that speed beats perfection, which is like, we can't, stay in our laurels and wait to have everything perfect. No, we have to just act, try things, and we'll fail fast and we'll move forward. So I think speed beats perfection was very important. The other one is we're all in it together. So we have to check in on each other, because not everybody is at the same place, and there's a lot happening in your personal life at the same time. And so we have to be in it together and check in on each other. And the third one was be agile on what you're going to do of your day. Meaning, maybe yesterday you were spending your entire time on makeup because it was the thriving category. And guess what? Today, people are at home. They don't use as much makeup. You're going to learn hair care. And, and that's going to be fine, because we're going to be agile. And at the end, we all have the same goal. So those 3 guiding principles have been very useful for us as a team, knowing that when I arrived in the US, I already started to infuse the break the autopilot principle, which is, if things are not working, that's okay. Try something new. And so we were already riding on this when COVID hit. So I think, the ingredients were there for us as a team to be able to bounce back.
Good. So yeah, it was a good transition. Let's talk about your leadership role now. Okay. So I made a brief mention of the growth zone. So what does that mean to you when you say you play in the growth zone?
I love to talk about growth because I think it's very much related to growth mindset as well. I think as individuals, if we stay static and remain always in our comfort zone, we don't learn anything. Right. But if we stretch ourselves too much, and we are in the panic zone all the time, then we won't be able to learn as much. So finding that sweet spot of the growth zone, which means stretching yourself enough so you learn new things, and, you might fail sometimes, but it's going to be a good way to unlock new potential, is really interesting for people. So that's what I'm trying to do with my team. And I also see that it's driving actually the success of the business. Because if you keep doing the same things, it's not good. I mean, it's going to keep giving the same results, right? Yeah. And it won't get you anywhere else than where you are today. So you really have to force yourself to do things differently. But at the same time, you have to also do it in a way that gives yourself and others the grace of having the time of learning. So I think finding that growth zone and putting your team in that growth zone is really great for the team, for the business, and for people individually.
Yeah. So since we're talking about metaphors, the growth zone, I have another metaphor for you. I was telling you offline, I had Hubert Joly on the podcast a couple of years ago, and he coined the phrase unleashing human magic. And I know that you've kind of adapted that to your own leadership. So, what does it mean for you to unleash human magic?
Yes. So I mean, for anyone who has not read the book of Hubert, you absolutely have to read it. It's really a fantastic book that explains his journey as a CEO, his reflections of leadership, and how he works with his team to unlock human magic. It's called The Heart of the Business, and I cannot, advertise more, but it's really a great book. And so for me, it really spoke to me right away when I read the book about this opportunity to the biggest age and advantage that we have in our entire business is our people. And if we can really empower them, through better connections, through more psychological safety, if we can empower them to do more, then that's how they're going to really get into it, give their entire self in the office, and then can really bring ideas, can challenge each other, can challenge the status quo. And that's really where great innovations emerge. And on top of that, it feels good. Like, it's really great. Like, we talk about love, we talk about kindness, we talk about care, but like being here for each other, listening to each other, I think that's what makes your day a very good day at work.
I love it. Okay, you dropped another term, so I want to expand on it, and that's psychological safety. So I had Amy Edmondson also on the show, and you worked with Amy. So what was
Yes,
that
I did.
experience like? What did well, actually, here's my question. Explain why you felt that psychological safety was important for your team. So something had to shift for you to say, hey, we need to bring Amy in and we need to kind of explore what does that look like for our team.
Yeah, I think psychological safety is really critical for us to succeed as a team. And the reason of that is because if you don't feel you can make mistakes, then you're going to keep playing safe. And if you play safe, you don't innovate and you don't bring in new ideas to the table, and you kind of limit yourself, limit your potential, and limit the potential of the business. So it's not great individually because you don't actually get yourself into that growth zone, but it's also not good for the business because you're leaving on the table so much potential. So I think psychological safety is such a huge driver of success in organizations, and it's very often underrated, but we have to really focus on that. Like, how do we create more psychological safety in organizations? Like, what do leaders have to do to role model psychological safety? And I think it's a huge unlock for leaders as they develop and for businesses.
I think the word safety kind of throws people off,
Yeah,
meaning that they misinterpret it. I can't take risks, where it's just the opposite. You create
exactly.
psychological safety for creative bravery for people to step out of the box and become more innovative.
I fully agree. And it's even when I spoke to Amy, she agreed herself that it was probably not the right way to call it. Because you have to understand that actually when you have psychological safety is when you're able to get out of your comfort zone.
Right.
So safety is not comfort. And we also have to distinguish what it is to be in a safe space, which could be your family or, versus what it is to create psychological safety, which is giving the conditions at work to be able to have the complex conversation and get out of your comfort zone, but without the fear of being judged or the fear of retaliation. So it's very different. It means when you have psychological safety, you can actually have the tough conversations. And that's where it leads to more ideas and more innovation.
Yeah. Now, we know that psychological safety impacts teams, but does that translate to impact to the consumer side or the customer side of things?
Me, 100%.
Hmm.
Because if we give ourselves the chance to fail, we're gonna learn more. So think about like a usual day at L'Oréal. Like we are talking about innovation, new products to launch in the market, new ways of activating our products. Either we get comfortable and we always use the same recipe, but then we are not going to really give the best to our consumers, or we really, debate ideas and see, okay, is it really that best innovation? Do you really think it's a life changer for consumer? Is it really bringing something new to the market? Are we sure that it's really solving a consumer tension here? And it's when we get into those questions that we really put ourselves in the position of doing something impactful and different for the business and really driving the business further and what it unlocks for consumers.
That's great. I'm glad you tied in, because I don't think I've ever asked any guests to make the connection between what happens inside the organization and the impact outside. So that's really, really good. Okay, Nathalie. So one of the reasons I brought you to the show is that you align well with the premise of leading through love in action, right? Title of the podcast. So let's take that squishy word. What does love mean to you in the context of leadership and building a successful business?
For me, it means a lot of different things. And I think, so if I start with one, then it would be with care. I think you have to care, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of the business. You have to take care of your team.
Yeah.
And that care is really important in the business today. So I think that's one way of seeing love in action in companies. It's really that caring mindset that is really driving, the engagement actually of employees. The other thing is vulnerable leadership. I think nobody's perfect. And that's why I love to talk about learn-it-all leaders versus know-it-all leaders. I'm not here to explain to my team everything they should do, how they should do it, and what is the best way to get everything right. But I'm here to be with them on the journey of learning. And I'm here to also learn from them, which is also the best part. And the other thing is empathetic leadership. It's like recognizing that we are not all in the same place, that we have different needs in order to be able to grow as professionals and as humans. And I think that's also another way to see love in action in companies.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, one of the themes of love in action to me is the ability to create opportunities for women to grow and advance. So I wanted to kind of touch on your experience. What has that journey been like becoming the first woman to lead L'Oréal's consumer products division in this country?
So look, it's been a journey since day one, but I've often been the first woman in the job I was in, and I take pride in that, but I also take big responsibility in that, because maybe I'm the first one today, but I'm opening the way for many others in the future, and I feel maybe maybe we are a bridge generation, and we have that role of opening up new opportunities for women who are going to come after us. So it's great to be in that position. I think it's really fantastic. I think women also bring a different vision on the business, on leadership, and it's always good to have diversity. So I think it's not about having more women at the top, but it's about having more points of view that are going to fuel the richness of the organization. So whether it's gender diversity, whether it's ethnic diversity, like any dimension of diversity, I think is really important to see in the organization. And I think we really need to always go back to the concept of equity versus equality. I think it's extremely important that, people are different and they don't have the same needs in order to really bring their whole selves to work and to be able to succeed in the organization and to bring value, to the business. And so I think we have to be very mindful of that and give people what they need in order to succeed in the organization.
That's great. I am so curious, sticking with the themes of DEI. I mean, you've led across continents. I mean, Asia, Europe, US. Talk a little bit about how you've adjusted your leadership style to kind of resonate with all of these diverse cultures.
So let's talk a little bit about that. But as a kid, my parents loved to travel, so we would always like travel and see new parts of the world, understand new culture, and so I've been like really exposed to that from my childhood, and I love that. So I wanted to really be able to marry my job with that curiosity to discover the world and to discover the new culture. I think so. I'm so glad and I'm so grateful, also to L'Oréal that I've been able to do that. I think it's a mindset. Then it's really about being curious and being ready to unlearn and learn again. But you also, in the journey, you also learn a lot about yourself. Because when you get into a new country that has a new culture, like you want to get that step forward to really adjust to the new culture and the new country and to be welcomed. But at the same time, you have to think about, okay, what makes me me? And what are the things where I might not, let go because it's part of me.
Right.
And so I think it's really very interesting as a leader and as an individual to reflect on that when you are, exposed to new cultures, which is what I've done. I've spent 3 years in India. I've spent 5 years in Thailand. I've now been 6 years in the US, and those cultures are very different.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to transition to another role you play in life. You're a mother, you have a family. And you started the family, if I'm correct, while working abroad, right? What was that experience like?
Yeah. So look, sometimes people ask me, okay, what is it to take a job abroad? And I always answer them, well, it's not a job. It's a life decision. Like when you go abroad because there's a great opportunity professionally, it's not only about the job. It's really a life decision for you and for the people who are in your life. So, when I had my first posting abroad and I left for India, actually the funny thing is that I had met the person who would become my husband and the father of my daughter just 5 months before. And I told him, like, don't get too attached because, I'm going to go abroad. That's my thing. The reason why I started in L'Oréal is to have a job, in a different country. So, and he goes like, great, where do you go? Maybe we can go together. and so that's how it started, right? And so 6 months after having met for the first time, then we were in Mumbai and starting, our story together. And it's about taking a leap of faith, for your job, but also for your personal life, and finding the person also that is happy by doing that as well. I couldn't have forced him. It's because for him, it was also a source of joy to really get into that adventure. So I think, again, like deciding to have a global professional life has an impact on your personal life. And so then when we decided to start a family, of course, you want the best for your family. So you have to find the right time, for you, the right time for your couple, the right time, in your life to start your family. And then you have to decide, what's important for your family and what are the things you're not going to trade on. Because you're not going to be able to do everything. There's also one thing that motherhood taught me is I have to be very focused on what matters. So I'm doing that at home. I'm doing that at work. I'm not going to be everywhere, but I'm going to be where it matters for the people that matter to me.
How many children do you have?
Only one.
Okay. So being a mom, let's make the link between, I've never asked this before, the link between motherhood and leadership. I mean, have you changed your approach to leading after having your child?
Absolutely. I think there are a few things. Number one, I'm much more focused on what matters because when you're a mom, you have to do so many different things. And so you have to be very intentional of what you do. And I think it forced me also at work to be more intentional and to focus on what matters. Then I think the caring aspect. Like, I think when you become a mom, and it's probably the same for fathers, is like suddenly there's a huge caring aspect of yourself that starts to, to show up. And so you can't really be that person at home and a totally different person at the office. So it's just a facet of yourself that you start to build. And I think it's great actually for the business and for the team as a leader to be a more caring leader is great. So I think I've developed that part as well. And the last thing I would say is that I talk about my daughter at the office. And I think it's good because it enables other women to talk about it. Like, it's not a taboo. Like, I'm a mother. Sometimes I go on a business trip and frankly, I have a hard time leaving my daughter because for her, it's hard. And I'm okay to talk about it. And I'm not perfect. We all face those situations and we should be able to talk about it at work as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a child as well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It has made me a better leader, and I can easily, as I look back at the person who I was before I had Joseph. He's 11 now. I am way more patient, and
Yeah.
and that really has transferred over to my professional life. I'm exercising a lot more patient skills. It's also made me more compassionate, I think.
Agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Okay. I want to know about what I know about good leaders and people that are in the growth zone is that they surround themselves with mentors and coaches. Who are your mentors?
I've been very fortunate. I've had a lot of mentors in my career, people of very different horizons, and people who sometimes were very intentional about mentoring me, and others who probably didn't even realize that their words like stuck with me for so long because it was like a critical moment of my career or a critical moment of my life. And, people talk about sisterhood, and that's really important. But I think it's also about like, I had amazing male mentors that were able to mentor me along the way and that were trying to also understand things from a different perspective. And that's also extremely enriching. So I think mentorship is a fantastic thing in life overall, but also in the organization.
Yeah. Yeah, no question. Okay, I know you are excited about this question, and I really want you to like dig in on this one. Okay, so as we wind down here, speak to the young, ambitious female leaders. If I'm aspiring to one day become the next, I don't know, female president of a large company, what's your advice for the journey ahead?
My first advice is remain ambitious and don't apologize for your ambition. And it's true that a lot of times, women in the organization, and how many times have I heard that? It's like, you're too ambitious. I don't think people say that as much to my male counterparts.
Right.
And I think women have to really not apologize for their ambition. We have to shift the paradigm because I think, it comes from probably our education. Like, it's true that little girls, have been raised to be perfect and to get everything under control, while little boys are more raised to be bold, audacious, and try new things. And I think we should shift the paradigm. Like, we don't have to be perfect. And
Right.
it's not going to be perfect. And that's okay. Like, we're going to learn along the way. But it's not because it's not going to be perfect that we shouldn't do it, or we shouldn't try it, or we shouldn't be bold. I think we absolutely have to. So number one advice, remain ambitious. Like, don't forget that. Like, everything is possible as long as you put the effort in and you believe in it. So keep dreaming big. I think that's really, really important. And then the other thing is, it's okay if it has not been done before. Like, we are here to try new things, to do new things. So there's not a playbook for everything, but you have to keep breaking the autopilot and keep, again, putting yourself in that growth zone. You're going to fail sometimes, but you're going to learn all the time. And that's really how we can grow.
Yeah, I love it. Be bold. Don't apologize for being ambitious. And I mean, and fail forward, because you're right. We're gonna fall. We're gonna fall down. Just get back up and fail forward. Keep going.
Exactly.
Don't give up on your mission.
Love the concept of fail forward.
Yeah. All right. Well, we bring it home finally to wrap up here with two questions. It's tradition on the show. The first question we've already kind of touched on. It's the love question. So sticking with the themes we've talked about, psychological safety, perhaps, I don't know, you pick. How do we lead as leaders with more actionable love day in and day out?
Yeah, I think maybe one thing I didn't speak about in the idea of what can love in action look like in the organization. I think it's also welcoming diverse voices. And making sure, we listen from all the voices in the room and not necessarily only the loudest ones. And so one thing I have in mind is reverse mentorship. I love reverse mentorship. We don't know everything as leaders, and we have a lot to learn from the more junior people in our teams. And on some topics, they know so much more than us. Like take digital, take TikTok, take all those topics that are changing like by the hour. So I love to have some reverse mentorship sessions in my team because I think it's very rich for me to learn new things, as a leader, but it's great for them because then we build a relationship, we get to know each other. And so I like that. And I think it's also fueling, humble leadership, and it's fueling a culture of extreme trust. So I think it's a nice thing to practice.
Yeah, and I say the ways that we speak about love in action, it all leads to trust. All roads that come from love lead to building trustworthy relationships. And that's going to create amazing things at work, not only for your team and organization, but like you said earlier, it's going to transfer over to the customer side, or in your case, the consumer side of the business as well. They're going to see the difference when we lead this way.
Absolutely. I fully agree with you. They're going to see the difference. We're going to have also more ideas to bring to the table. And again, when you listen to all the voices in the room, then it's a posture of being more inclusive in the way you work. And so then you're ready to develop products that are also more inclusive. Like the way we do that at L'Oréal is through two dimensions. One is representation, which is about showing the diversity of beauty of our consumers. And the other thing is relevancy, making sure we create the products that truly answer the needs of each and everyone. And, in this space, L'Oréal has been developing a lot of things in even beauty tech, as new tools. For example, we created Apta, which is a device that is helping people with motor skills challenges to be able to apply their lipstick the right way or do their brows the right way. So I think when you are inclusive in the way you work, you can also create the products that are going to be inclusive for your consumers.
Absolutely. 100%. All right, bring us home. Give us that one final takeaway, that one thing that would like to bring us home with.
I would say that in order, and we spoke about that, but in order to be successful in the marketplace, you have to be successful in the workplace. So always put your employees first, the way you work as a leader first, because it's all going to start from there on how much your team can unlock for your business.
That's great. It's been a pleasure. If people want to connect with you, where can they go? Show them a few places.
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best place to find me. So please connect and let's keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. Folks, that's all we got. Nathalie, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you being with us today. And look for the show notes. I'm going to include all of her information, and as well as you'll find a YouTube link to this very episode so you can watch us interact. And until
Thank you
next
so much,
time,
Marcel. Thanks for having me.
my pleasure. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Love in Action podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, subscribe, and leave us a review. Until next time, don't forget, the future of leadership is love in action. Believe it, practice it, and watch your leadership and business flourish.